Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast that dives deep into the world of leadership. If you're passionate about learning from the brightest minds in the field, you're in the right place. In each episode, we embark on an inspiring journey alongside successful leaders, unraveling the secrets behind their accomplishments. From their early beginnings to their current roles, we'll explore the unique paths they've traveled to reach their present status. We'll dive into their biggest challenges and pivotal lessons and gain invaluable tips from the inspiring leaders. Today's guest, Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant is the interim Vice Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Duke University School of Nursing. He is also the immediate past president of the American Nurses Association, the nation's largest nurses association, representing the interests of nearly 4.3 million registered nurses. He is the first man to be elected to the office of president of the American Nurses Association in its 127 years of existence. As a distinguished leader, Dr. Grant has more than 30 years of nurse experience and is an internationally recognized burn care and fire safety expert. I got to repeat that because that just doesn't happen. Dr. Grant has more than 30 years of nursing experience and is an internationally recognized burn care and fire safety expert. He also serves as an adjunct faculty for the UNC Chapel Hill School of Nursing, where he works with undergraduate and graduate nursing students in the classroom and clinical settings. For the past 4 years, this internationally recognized nurse, Dr. Grant, has been recognized by Modern Healthcare magazine as one of 50 influential clinical executives in healthcare and as one of 100 most influential people in healthcare. He has been nationally recognized for his work addressing racism, equity, and inclusion within the nursing profession. But wait, there's even more to Dr. Grant. In 2002, President George W. Bush presented Dr. Grant with a Nurse of the Year award for his work treating burn victims from the World Trade Center site. He was inducted as a fellow into the American Academy of Nursing in 2011. Dr. Grant holds a BSN degree from North Carolina Central University and an MSN and PhD degree from University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I don't know about you, but I'm excited for this interview. But before we dive in, Sound Leadership wants you to stay up to date, and you can do so by liking our social media pages. You can find us on LinkedIn and YouTube at Sound Leadership with DJ, where we share updates and pivotal additional content and behind-the-scenes glimpses. And don't forget, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, including Apple Music, Alexa, iHeartRadio, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. So if you're ready to be inspired, motivated, this is the episode that you need to see. Let's dive into this world of leadership together. Welcome, Dr. Grant. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to have to perhaps hire you to introduce me as I travel around the country giving talks.
Listen, I didn't make that up. That's your background. That's you. And for what it's worth, I'm inspired as a male nurse. That was when I saw your accolades. I said, "Wow, this is amazing. This is the kind of career I want to have as a male nurse." Mm-hmm. 30 years in the profession. That I'm going to toot your horn because 30 years in the profession is a long time. And, You know, as a male nurse who came into this realm, I appreciate you for knocking down doors for me to enter. I really do. I think that based on your bio, you have a wealth of information to share with us. So just thank you for joining us on this podcast.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yes. So I did do an introduction, but as I always tell my guests, it's nothing compared to hearing it out of your words. So can you tell us who Dr. Grant is?
Let's see. It's just Dr. Grant is this 6'6" African-American male nurse who has the heart of a teddy bear. Even though I realize that perhaps I may appear to be imposing for some people, but I really am just like I said, the heart of a teddy bear. Wow. I love what I do from a nursing perspective, be that when I was at the bedside or moving into leadership positions. One of the things that drove me to not only go back from getting my baccalaureate degree or my master's and my PhD, was that I wanted to be able to do more for the people that I cared for, as well as for the profession. And I realized that, obtaining those degrees would be the way to get the attention that was needed when you're working with people at the federal level or even
Yes.
the international level. We're looking at various ministries of health and et cetera. They seem to set up and take notice when you have, a doctorate after your name as opposed to a baccalaureate degree.
Wow. Wow. So why nursing? Why nursing? What intrigued you to go into nursing, especially as a male? And I'll speak from my perspective. There's not many males that I see at my level um, that are in nursing, and then you add a sprinkle of African American males. So, what intrigued you to go into nursing?
Well, anybody that has heard my story had probably heard me say that I actually got into nursing by mistake. I didn't find nursing, nursing found me. But my goal, if you will, when I was in high school, when I was a junior in high school, and speaking with my counselor, high school guidance counselor, I had told him that I wanted to be an anesthesiologist and drive a lime green 1968 Mercury Cougar. And for your listeners, go look that car up. It is the bomb. I'm still trying to find one. So if someone knows where there's one, let me know. And, and that was it. But I was the youngest of 7 kids, came from a very poor family. My father died when I was 5, so my mother raised 7 kids on her own. Well, I should say my mother in the community, because you've heard that
Yes, yes,
phrase that it takes a village. My mother worked at the post office, so everybody, it didn't matter what color your skin was, everybody knew her and knew that you were
yes,
her kid. And
yes,
if they caught you doing wrong, she would tell them, I don't care what color your skin is. If you see my children doing wrong, you have my permission to discipline them. So for me, it was simply just, people who would say, would your mother approve of you doing that? If I was doing something wrong. And I knew that, okay, it's time to stop. But the high school guidance counselor suggested, well, and this is back in the mid 70s, you said, 30 years is more like 40 years, actually 40, probably 43 years, 44 years. But the guidance counselor suggested that I perhaps go to nursing school at the local quote unquote technical institute, precursor to community college. So that
wow,
shows you how old that is. And he said, but you may not like nursing. So, they do have this 1-year program. You can make this investment. And if you like that, then you could easily transition to the second year and just go from there. But what he was trying to get me on a path to do was to become a nurse anesthetist. And he said, if you still want to go to med school, you could work your way through med school as a nurse anesthetist and not have so many student loans and et cetera. Because let's face it, back in the mid 70s, there were not that many scholarships for not let alone med school, but let alone for people of color to
wow.
to go to school and et cetera. So I did that, and probably about 3 months into that program, I realized that nursing was my calling and totally forgot about going to medical school. And as I said, I graduated. That particular program, you graduated as a licensed practical nurse or LPN, and but I realized that the scope of practice for the LPN at that time was very limited, and I wanted to be able to do more. So that was my encouragement to go back and get my baccalaureate degree and subsequently my master's and subsequently PhD.
Wow. Before hearing you speak, I didn't know you were LPN, and that was, similar to my journey. I was a licensed practical nurse,
Mm-hmm.
went back down my RN, my bachelor's, my master's. Now I'm working on my DNP. So,
Mm-hmm.
very similar journey. I tell people nursing found me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through those times when nursing finds you, or when nursing finds you, I find the greatest strength, right? Because it's not something that I set out to do. I
Right.
feel like yourself, it's a calling. And when it's a
Mm-hmm.
calling, as cliche as it sounds, it's not a job.
Right. It definitely is not a job. I could probably count on one hand the number of times that, even though I worked in burns and critical care, one of the most traumatizing unit to work in, and we took from pediatrics through geriatrics. My youngest patient was a newborn preemie that was 23 weeks old. My oldest was 104. And to know that you're going to work to inflict pain on someone, but it was necessary in order for them to get better. That took a lot of stamina, but I also realized that I was making a difference, in someone's life. And, patients that I took care of 30, 40 years ago, we're still the closest of friends. I get phone calls on the anniversary date that they were injured, or their children, well, now their grandchildren are getting married or whatever else, and you have to come and you have to sit on the front row, or we're having a barbecue, or that type thing. I can't think of any other profession that will allow you to really be involved in a person's life for the little bit of time that they need you.
Yes.
You make that impression, but there's the ongoing friendships that have lasted for eons, and I don't think any other profession can really say that.
Yeah, I think there's a reason we're constantly voted as the most trusted profession, right? We
Absolutely.
hold, we have, as some would say, a job, but it's really a profession, and it's really with the highest honor. And I am grateful to be entrusted with caring for the patients as yourself. As you've gone throughout your career, you've had various leadership roles. What has drawn you into leadership? We will get to the fact that you oversaw the ANA as the president, right?
Yeah.
But what has drawn you into leadership?
You know what? I tell people that in my baccalaureate program, the school that I went to was HBU. And those professors there drilled it into my head from day one that if you're going to consider yourself the professional nurse, you need to belong to your professional organization. Actually, they said there are 3 professional organizations at minimum that you need to belong to. The first one is your state nurses association. The second one is the American Nurses Association. And the third one is your specialty. Like for me, it would have been critical care. So AACN. And so it was a no-brainer that, I'm sure that your listeners can probably identify that, their instructors probably told them to go to the local district meeting of the State Nurses Association, or maybe the state meeting, or whatever. And when they got there, they found their instructors there. Same in my case, but my instructors were not there just to check the row to see who was there and who was not. They were there because they were on committees. They were getting up to the microphone, asking those tough, challenging questions. In other words, they were showing us how it should be done. And that just left an impression on me, and still does to this very day. And I tell students and young people that I mentor and et cetera, this is how it's done. You've got to have a voice and a say in how your profession is governed. Because if you don't do it, someone who is far removed from nursing will be doing that. And I've seen that happen too many times. And one of my favorite saying is, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And that is certainly true, because, people, they want to just assume. And that's one thing about we as a profession as well, is that in some cases we're too kind. Sometimes we go, oh yeah, I don't mind doing that. Load one more, instead of saying, wait a minute, this is enough. When you look at the staffing shortage issue and et cetera, it just becomes an expectation that, you call up for extra staff and they say, well, we don't have, someone to send you. So what do? We suck it up, and everybody, divvies, 2 or 3 more patients. And the downside to that, though, is one, it becomes an expectation every time that you call up and say, we're short staffed. They're going to anticipate that, we'll tell them we don't have anyone. And when the next shift comes on and they call up, they will be told, well, first shift did it, why can't you? That little bit of a guilt feeling, if you will. And so that's not a way to practice the profession, because it takes away from what you need to be doing at the bedside. And, we need to put our foot down and say, this is not right. We need to, get the appropriate amount of staff in here.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's the hot topic. No matter whether you're in a hospital, long-term care, home
Right.
care, physician office, staffing. The staffing shortage is all over, and it doesn't just affect healthcare, right? It affects all industries. You go to the
Absolutely.
you go to the store, you go to the restaurant, and they have signs that we're hiring. But I think in our industry, it's important, right? Because we're caring for lives, and I'm not saying we're better than any other industry, but we're physically caring for lives, and what we do
Absolutely.
or don't do directly impact the
Mhm.
clinical outcomes, right, of
Absolutely.
the patients that we're caring for. So, as a leader, how can we help to encourage more people to come into this field of nursing? I think when you talk to some nurses, I'm sure you've talked to them, they're
Mhm.
burnt out, they're tired, they're
Yes.
discouraging people from coming in. So how do we encourage more people to enter the field of nursing?
I think the first thing is we need to set the example that we want to model, or the behavior that we want to model. I think it needs to start way early in middle school, not high school, but middle school. And actually, a professional organization that I belong to, we actually have adopted a third grade class, and we go in, rotating, once or twice a month, and for them to look up to me and say, wow, this 6'6" black guy is a nurse, but he's also helping me to read, or he's also helping me to, if I need school supplies, they're supplying that, or if I need a coat or something like that, they're supplying that. So when that person grows up, maybe when they're in the sixth, seventh, or eighth grade and they're thinking about a career, they perhaps will be thinking about nurses because we left an impression on them about who it is that we are and what we do, and that we're everywhere. We're not just at the local, hospital that's down the street, but nurses are everywhere. And we let them know that there are a lot of things that we as nurses can do. You're involved in research, community health, maybe running your own business, being an entrepreneur, things of this sort. And we take the same STEM courses that someone who's going to be a physician or a pharmacist or an engineer, we are just as smart and just as challenged as those individuals will be. So in order for them to, to really see and get a handle on who it is and what it is that nurses do. I mean, I know nurses who work for NASA,
Wow.
so to think about that, and, that it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're going to work at the local hospital. You can do anything that you want to do, as a nurse. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it. And if you want to carve your own niche, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I'm sure you have stories over the course of your career, but I know I have stories over the course of my career as a nurse. I've done so many things. I mean, I'm hosting a podcast with Dr. Grant as a
Mhm.
registered nurse, right? So, the stories are endless,
Yes.
and opportunities are endless. You have to have that drive and that initiative. But
Mhm.
I want to go back to what you said, right? You guys
Mhm.
have adapted a third grade class, and I'm going to drop a shameless plug. There's a group from Detroit, and a lot of my viewers know I'm from Detroit. It's called
Mhm.
Nursing Detroit. And
Mhm.
Nursing Detroit is a group that specializes in working with the inner city kids. They are
Mhm.
generally middle to high school level
Mhm.
kids, and they teach them about the field of nursing. This
Uh-huh.
young lady who runs this program, her name is Felicia. She has anesthesiologists come in. I used to speak for them. Various
Mhm.
different healthcare providers come in, and they
Yeah.
start to rope these kids into
Mhm.
healthcare.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think that's important because if you
It is.
start seeing it when you're young, you're more apt to be curious and question the profession.
Mhm. It's vitally important. And actually, um, during my term as president of the ANA, I was actually in the process of having talks with the Boys and Girls Club of America, and then a little virus came along and sidetracked thing. But that those talks centered on inviting, nurses, particularly nurses of color, particularly
Yes.
men, into the Boys and Girls Club, and have those discussions so that they can see that men can be nurses, that men can be nurturers, that we have a kind heart, and that as a nurse you can make a pretty good decent living as well, and be able to, like I said, do anything. You could fly or ride in a helicopter to provide critical care services for someone who needs to be transported that way, or on the back of an ambulance, or work in the OR, as a nurse anesthetist or as a circulating nurse, even as a instructor in a nursing program. So, as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to work at the local hospital. There are so many other different avenues that you can elect to work in.
I think that's definitely very true. We when we think of nursing, I know a lot of people, especially me, when I thought of nursing as a young 18-year-old male, I was like, that's a female field. Why would I do that? That's a woman's field. But you mentioned the various different things that people can do. As a young male nurse or someone who has entered the profession, I know there's so much that you can do. But from your
Mhm.
perspective, why should males enter this field? And you can even rope in some diversity, equity, and inclusion
Yeah,
into that. But
yeah.
why should males enter the field?
Well, why shouldn't we? I'll ask that question. We're just as capable. Actually, if you know your nursing history, the first nurses were men. They were monks who took care of the sick and the mentally ill in the 1400s. And I like to tell my female colleagues that we just loaned this to them, for just a little bit, but we're getting it back. But to honestly answer your question, there is so much that men who who are in the role of nurses that we can do. Again, it takes all of us, and I think someone needs to be able to see someone who looks like them. If you're on the other side of the bed, and you look up and you see someone who looks like you, be they black, white, yellow, red, blue, green, whatever. But it's extremely important that that knowing that person is going to advocate for you, also knowing that especially if they're from your same culture, they can challenge the healthcare team and say, "This is how my culture approaches." Healthcare and et cetera. So those $10 words that the doctor is using, they can interject and say, this person only understands $2 words.
Yes.
Or you can interact for them. I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, and I know that if a patient says, my gullet hurts me, I know that they're talking about their stomach.
Interesting.
But somebody else will go, what? What are you talking about? And so you sort of have to be that bridge to ensure that the patient is understood. And I guess the most important reason why men should go into nursing is that you have better outcomes. Well, I mean, just nursing in general, but when we're a diverse population, we know that we have better outcome, better compliance from the patients who are on the other side of the bed, because again, they see you as, hey, this person's from my community, this person's from my culture, this person explained to me why you need to take this blood pressure medicine, even though you're denying that you may have hypertension, but
Yes.
or that it's causing you to cough. It's okay. Talk to your doctor. Let them know that you're coughing, and they can put you on another medication. Again, giving them the freedom, if you will, to have those crucial conversations and not just think, well, you're wearing that big white lab coat, and so what you're saying must be, the gospel truth. Well, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to be heard and feel empowered to be heard.
Well, I appreciate that viewpoint, and I think I got a little ahead of myself because I should have asked before I led into that is what is actually diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I see that title next to your name, interim
Mhm.
vice dean DEI. What
Mhm.
does that mean?
What that means is that we're trying to level the playing field, if you will. That that everyone should be treated the same way, but know that equity and equality, there's a difference. But the thing is that we're trying to get everyone to understand that some people may be a little bit more privileged than others, and getting them to recognize that privilege that they have, so that they can become allies for those who are not privileged, and begin to promote change and stop perpetuating old cultures or old customs, if you will, that continues to happen. And I always use this as an example. If you have a black man who comes to the emergency room, rule out an MI, and he is told that he's discharged and told to take Tylenol, and then you have a white man coming in the same way, and quickly he's rushed off to the cath lab to get a stent put in. The only difference may be the color of their skin. Some people do what they call the wallet test, meaning do they have insurance or whatever. And meanwhile, the black man comes back in full arrest in a few hours. There's something wrong there. We need to have our allies to speak up and say, well, why does this man get a full workup and a stent placed, and this man here is sent back home, and now he's coming in a full arrest and possibly may not survive. There's something wrong there. We need to address that behavior.
Wow. And I go back to your title as the vice dean. What is the significance of interjecting DEI into the schools? I think that's when I was going to school. That might have been a chapter or a page in a book. I think now these schools are adapting this. But what are the advantages that the healthcare profession and the patients benefit from by interjecting DEI into the schools?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we do at Duke, our dean is trying to push a new model of healthcare called nurse-led models of care, and incorporating DEI in with that, as well as with the social determinants of health. So as we are providing instructions to our students, we're getting them to think more globally and not just what may have happened when you and I were in school and we talk about this disease and this is the way it presents itself and this is the medication that you take and da 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 da. Well, now we're challenging our students to think more broadly. Why is this person in this predicament? Why are they coming in with asthma again and again? Let's go look at their environment. What's going on there that maybe is triggering that. And of course, as nurses, we're great at networking. So we can, find some resources to address that so that this person doesn't have this chronic illness, or we can, take things and, begin to address that. So it's a melding, if you will, of both DEI, again, understanding and, trying to level that playing field. If I know that there's a certain section in Durham, North Carolina, or some other area within the state or across the country where access to healthcare is quite a challenge. If somebody has to, take 4 buses and, things like that in order to, to come to my clinic, well, why can't we consider moving the clinic to them? Why do clinics have to be open from 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon? Why can't we open it from 8 in the morning till maybe 8 or 10 o'clock at night, which would allow that person who feels that I have to work to put food on the table and pay my bills, well, they can do that. And then when they get off work, they can still come to the clinic and, and have their needs met. You're much more likely to have someone who's going to be more compliant that way than if it is, someone who fears that, oh, well, if I take this day off to look after my health, my employer may fire me because there's always somebody else waiting to take that job. So we really need to rethink the services and things that we may offer and how we offer them, and have a better understanding of what's going on in the community. Listen to what the people in the community says as well. If they say we need a clinic at this church or synagogue or whatever, then we perhaps need to look into that and start providing that.
I think that's important because what you talk about is really holistic care, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's members coming in, there's patients coming in, there's residents coming in, there's clients coming in, depending on the setting that you're in. But they're coming in for care, and it's a repeat issue, and it's not being handled. So how do we, really approach this person's health on a global scale? And one of the areas that I've worked in my career where I was able to really impactfully make changes to the patient's health was home care. Because when you're in that patient's home, you can see that they don't have food. You can see that they're not taking their medication. You can see that they're deciding between buying insulin and cat food. That's truly what happens.
This is truly, yeah, absolutely. And that's what that nurse-led models of care will enable our students to do. When they're doing their community rotation and things like that, they're looking for those and assessing those, and will be, connecting those individuals with resources within the community. If I find that, oh, well, no wonder this person is coming in with colds and everything else, because their home has holes in the walls or whatever else, and the cold air is getting in. Maybe we can find some funds or something like that that will help repair that, so that they can live in a nice warm environment, or maybe they don't have wood for their wood burning stove or their fireplace, and we know that there's a place where we can get that for them. It's all those. I sort of liken it to, if you think of the old earlier model of the nurse midwives. Yes, you were responsible for the mother and the newborn, but you were also responsible for the rest of the family. So if you saw something that was going on, you did that, and you took care of that. But your primary responsibility was for the mother and the infant. But if the rest of the family is starving, or they're living in conditions that are not all that well, then that's what you do. You try to meet those needs as well.
Wow. So I love the fact that you're now interjecting the next set of students or the next set of nurses with this DEI. But how can companies start to incorporate that into their care model delivery and spread that on to the patients that they care for?
That's a really great question. And the thing is that I think the care starts at the top. So the CEO and the leadership team, they have to decide, they got to have those crucial conversations to decide, are we just checking the box, and saying, yeah, we got a, DEI person, and we'll let them do so much, but, we're not going to go all out or try to upset the cart, if you will, or that, they do mean what they say, and they are going to make this commitment and try to get people to go, to get on the bandwagon with them. So that may mean that, we're stepping on some toes. And I'll give you a perfect example. When we started the Commission to Address Racism in Nursing through the ANA, we got a lot of flack from our members saying, why is ANA in this area? This is not, where we should be, when in actuality, it is where we should be. Or people would say, well, I don't see color. Well, if you don't see color, you don't see me. You're lumping me in with every 6'6" Black guy. And it's like, I'm standing over here screaming, saying, hello, this is, so I know the intention is meant well, but unless you can, have those difficult conversations, talk to the individuals one-on-one. And, and the other thing I want to get across too, that when we talk about topics like racism and et cetera, it's not just a black-white thing. It's, everybody, is racist. I know as many Black people who will say, I don't want a white person caring for me, as I have experienced, white patients saying, I don't want a Black person caring for me as well. There may be a difference as to why. Obviously, for sometimes they may feel, the Black person may feel, oh, you're experimenting on me or whatever else, whereas the white person may be coming from a inexperience or what they may have learned in their family. But the thing is, we need to try to figure out, okay, what is it that that you that is causing you to think this way, and also, if the organization has a policy that we don't discriminate, that we don't provide white for white and black for black and Hispanic for Hispanic or whatever, then they need to enforce that, because the message you're sending to that nurse is, is a mixed message. You're telling them that, yeah, we value you, but this is the way we show that we value you. We're going to take away this assignment and give you, someone else, and give someone else to that assignment, all because they want those Press Ganey scores, and that's not good.
Wow. It's interesting you say that, because I do believe that it starts at the top, and it's not just checking a box. So when plenty of times I've sat in leadership roles all the way up to the C-suite, and sometimes you go in these meetings and you look around and there's no DEI
Right.
in that room.
Right.
So I think it starts at the top, and I think the work that you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that the ANA, started to kind of dig into that. So let's switch over to the ANA. What actually is the ANA? What I know from you is it took 127 years for the first male to become the president. But tell us more about the ANA and how you got involved. Obviously, like you said, they encouraged you as a young student, but encouragement doesn't land to become the president.
No, absolutely, it doesn't. Well, as you mentioned at the introduction, it is the largest nursing organization in the country that represents the interests of the nation's 4.3 million registered nurses. We help to set policies and guidelines regarding care and things of this sort, but also advocacy, policy and things like that. And so we are up on Capitol Hill working with members of Congress and various healthcare related agencies at the federal level, also trying to protect the nurses' ability to practice. But how I got started in ANA was a week after my graduation from undergrad. An application was put in my hand by one of my teachers, and so I joined the North Carolina Nurses Association. Was asked, would I mind serving on a certain committee? And I said, sure, no problem. And little did I realize they were probably roping me. This was it was a membership committee, and so which was one of the toughest committees that the organization had at that time. But I was very successful with that. And then they said, well, maybe you should chair that committee. And so you get all pumped up, and plus you're being assigned leadership roles or committees at work as well. And then suddenly someone decided, oh, you should serve on a committee within ANA at the national level, and serving on several different committees and et cetera. But I think my very first convention that I went to, membership assembly as we call them now, one of the second Black president, that was Dr. Beverly Malone, was president at the time. And I remember walking up to the podium after she had given a very fiery speech. If you haven't had the pleasure of hearing Dr. Malone's speech, it's almost like going to church on Sunday, but all you have to do is just pass the plate after that. But I remember telling her, I want to be where you are someday. And she said, well, you keep it up and you will. And I certainly did. But I knew, too, as I continued to serve on various committees and subsequently on the ANA board, I saw how presidents who only had a baccalaureate degree versus presidents who had a master's degree versus presidents who had a doctorate, I saw how they were treated by either members of Congress or, Ministry of Health for various countries, or the federal officials, at the federal level, such as HHS and, things of this sort. So that sort of put in motion a plan that, if I'm going to run for president, I need to have a doctorate, because I don't want people saying, oh, well, he's only got a master's degree. And even though I have all the other credentials, I was, chairman of the board for another organization that, had about 250,000 members, and it was a codes and standards making organization, and was second vice president for the American Burn Association. So I didn't want people to think that, I come from a variety of experiences and leadership positions. So when the time came for me to run, it was an easy transition to do that. And I ran against 7 other people and wound up getting all but 4 votes. So
not to toot his horn.
Yeah. Sure.
That means some of the 7 voted for you.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Wow. I mean, your journey is remarkable. And
Mm-hmm.
I will say it, and I'm sure you hear it 1,000 times, right? You're an inspiration. And, from the moment I've reached out to you to try to get you on Sound Leadership with DJ, you've been nothing but pleasant to me. So I appreciate the time you took and you've taken to just invest in this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, but also into the field of nursing. As we talk about nursing as a whole, I want to see this field continue on and continue to be ranked the number one profession, the most trusted profession. And it takes people doing exactly what you're doing, advocacy for us. As we come to an end and we draw this podcast to an end, what advice would you have to students, people, whoever who wants to enter the field of nursing, but is hesitant based on what they're seeing in the media?
I would say, don't be hesitant. There are wonderful opportunities that are out there. You need to embrace it as a challenge, and you are making a difference in someone's life. One of the things that I ask myself every day at the end of the day was, did I make a difference in someone's life today? And I can truly say that I did, even in this role, even if it's, setting that student down who maybe feels that, someone is doing either macro or micro aggression against them, or that they maybe had a rough day in clinical, or something like that, and we talk about that, and that you shouldn't let something like that deter you from achieving your dream and being a member of the best profession known to mankind. So that's what I would say. There's always tons of money out there for scholarship. If someone's saying that, I don't have scholarships or whatever, there's tons of organizations that offer scholarships as well, and that you don't have to pay back, and et cetera. So, that's something else to think about. But I would encourage them to keep your eye on the prize and go for it.
Wow. I appreciate your time, Dr. Grant. If people want to reach out to you, is there a way to reach out to you? I know you inspired me, you inspire thousands of others, but maybe they want to reach out to you or follow you on your LinkedIn or something. Is there a way to connect with you?
Yeah, they can. You did mention LinkedIn, and that's probably going to be the best way to connect with me. I would give out my Duke email, but I can't do that. So they can reach me on LinkedIn. I usually go on there about 2 or 3 times a week. So if they send out a message or request to connect, you may not hear from me right away, but just as I said, I only go on just a couple of times a week.
Hey, we understand you're better in the profession, so you do what you have to do. What I will say, as from Sound Leadership with DJ, he just checked the messages, and that is how I reached out to him. So I thank you once again, Dr. Grant, for coming on Sound Leadership with DJ. I thank the audience for viewing this episode of Sound Leadership with DJ. I really hope you gained valuable insights and inspiration from our conversation with Dr. Grant. If you've enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to like and follow our social media pages for more great content. You can find us on YouTube and LinkedIn at Sound Leadership with DJ. Also, don't forget to tune in to this podcast on your favorite platforms, including Apple Music, Alexa, iHeartRadio, and so many more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest episode. What I want you to remember is leadership is a journey. It is okay if your journey winds and weaves. Everyone's journey is going to be different. But what you must remember is when you start this journey, you have to finish this journey. Reach out to people like Dr. Grant, myself, and others who can inspire you to be your best self. Thank you for watching Sound Leadership with DJ.